Well, welcome to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. This is my twice weekly show, Elevenses. It's show number 551, and it's Sunday, the 3rd of August. So we are into the final month, sadly, of the Northern Hemisphere summer here in the UK. So, what have I got for you today? Well, quite a lot. Again, the City of London police have raided cash for crash, I should have written there. Crash for cash? I don't know. Anyway, homes and garages. Supreme Court here in the UK has overturned the commission payments ruling from a lower court. A New Zealand rider sadly died in a collision with a school bus on a rural road. The California Flower Power Junction has been shortlisted for some design awards. And a correction, airbags will not be compulsory for A licence holders in Spain. Livewire sold just 55 bikes in the last quarter. The Chinese brand Bender has launched 3 models here in the UK, and Suzuki have brought back the GSXR 1000R. And finally, in depth today, why I think it's long past time that all of us as bikers dropped the drivers are out to kill me line, because it adds nothing to safety, but it adds a lot to antipathy between the two groups of road users. So make yourself a brew, settle yourselves down, and stay with me for the next 35 minutes or so as I run through the news and that final in-depth item. Right. Now, the first thing I just want to talk about briefly is a little bit of sort of personal stuff. I was out in the car actually yesterday. We'd been out for a walk and we're on the way back into central London down the M1. And I spotted a motorcycle with no mirrors. Now, I've never quite understood why it is that riders will remove or fold in their mirrors when they're riding on the road. I regularly see a guy around here on an R1 who always has them in flat against the fairing. I guess it makes it a little bit easier to filter, but the lack of a mirror is the problem it sets you fairly easily. Anyway, yesterday there was a sort of a 4-cylinder bike. I'm not sure what it was. It was some kind of naked. It howled past down the M1 at a fair old pace. I was in the inside lane doing 60 odd miles per hour in no big rush, and I would guess that he was probably riding at about 90 or more in the outside lane, judging by A, the speed he shot past me, but also B, the speed he caught up the vehicle in front of him that was also in the outside lane. He gave the car driver about a second to see him and then weaved into the middle lane between 2 cars and pulled straight back out in front of him. Anyway, I passed him again a few minutes later, and he was going rather more slowly, or to be more exact, he was at a complete standstill because stopped on the hard shoulder, just behind him was a police car with the blues and the blues and twos were still going. They'd obviously just pulled him over. I guess he probably heard the siren. I very much doubt that he saw the police car. So just maybe those mirrors would have come in quite useful just a few moments earlier. Of course, not everybody rides or drives flat out like that. And the driver was actually stopped near Haverhill in Suffolk just the other day for driving at a fraction over 20 miles per hour. And as the police report said, that was almost 40 miles per hour under the national speed limit. Unfortunately for the driver, the check revealed that he had only a provisional driving license and he was uninsured. So he faces a bunch of fines and points, and the car was seized. Now, the e-course, I've just received some very positive feedback on that. The next one's due to start on August the 8th. As I said, they will normally start first Friday, but this month it was Friday the 1st. So I'm starting it on August the 8th. If you're interested, then this is what was written by Ian. We just had our end of course Zoom a few days back, and he said, I quote, Once again, thank you for such an outstanding motorcycle course. I truly appreciate how it encompassed the often overlooked human element of motorcycle control, both the physical and, if not more important, the mental approach to riding safely. Your approach to control of the machine itself, combined with the excellent practical on-road exercises, is an approach that gave me a much deeper understanding of riding. The course has been a real eye-opener. It's made a lasting impact on the way I think about and approach riding. It's an absolute bargain, and I would wholeheartedly recommend it to every rider, no matter what they think their current skill level is. We can always learn something new. Nobody sets out to become a statistic. Applying the content of the course and the probability is substantially reduced. And he rounded off by saying, I'm very appreciative of the tremendous amount of time and effort you've put into producing such an excellent course. Now, obviously, e-course won't be everybody's cup of tea, but if you are interested in signing up, you can do so via this QR code. So do that after the show, if you will, because what's coming next, of course, is the weather. Excuse me. Now, Storm Floris will be bringing some very unseasonable weather for early August, particularly to the north of the country tomorrow, Monday. There's a Met Office weather warning for North Wales and basically all points northwards. But for the rest of the day, today, there is a band of patchy rain moving southeast across southern England. It'll clear up from here during the evening. Further to the north, it's likely to be brighter with sunny spells. Now, overnight, the heavy rain associated with Storm Floris will move into Northern Ireland, then northwest England and western Scotland. And the winds will pick up as the storm itself deepens. It'll pass just to the north of Scotland. It will bring damaging stormy winds with gusts of up to 85 miles per hour on the northwest coast of Scotland. And even inland, there could be gusts up to 70 miles per hour. Now, at the moment, of course, trees are in full leaf, so expect those strong winds to bring trees down and certainly strew broken branches around. Now, by late afternoon, the strongest winds will have moved up towards the east coast of Scotland. Rain will be heavy, it'll be persistent in northwest Scotland, and that could lead to flooding and, of course, travel disruption is likely. Further south, an active band of heavy rain and windy weather will stretch right down across the rest of the UK. It'll start off obviously enough in the west and it'll drive southeast and it'll reach the southwest corner of England and the London area by early afternoon and the far southeast by late afternoon. After that, Tuesday will remain breezy as the storm moves off into the North Sea, but most of the country should see some sunny spells, just a few scattered showers in the north and west. So much better if still windy day on Tuesday. All right. Okay, so on with some news. The first story is actually that the City of London Police's Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, the IFED, has executed a series of raids across the city as part of a targeted operation into suspected crash for cash activity linked to moped garages. Now, the coordinated action took place at 2 residential addresses and 4 garages in East and South London, involved the Met Police, their motorcycle safety team, the Home Office Immigration Enforcement, the Insurance Fraud Bureau, and the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency. The main suspect, believed to be orchestrating this crash for cash incident, that he was arrested. I say he, I don't actually know because they didn't actually give a gender. So they were arrested. Key digital devices believed to contain evidence of staged collisions were seized. 3 confirmed stolen motorcycles were recovered from garage premises, one of which had already been restored. Several other bikes, which they say were identified by the Insurance Fraud Bureau, they were found to feature in multiple stage collisions and they highlight the scale of the suspected fraud. So Detective Chief Inspector Nick Jathwa from the City of London Police's Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department said crash for cash isn't just a financial crime, it's a dangerous tactic that puts innocent people directly in harm's way. These staged collisions can lead to real injuries and even fatalities, and the criminals behind them show complete disregard for public safety in the pursuit of illicit gain. Right, okay. So next story then. Well, this actually also involves money, but it's a slightly different angle. The Supreme Court has decided not to uphold an earlier ruling which found that hidden commission payments to car dealers built into loans were unlawful. Now, some dealers were being paid a bigger commission. This is how it worked. They were paid a bigger commission if they sold the same loan, but on a higher rate of interest. And this was not disclosed to buyers. Now, these were known as discretionary commission arrangements, and they were actually banned by regulators back in 2012. The Supreme Court considered the three test cases, and they focused on whether commission payments made by finance companies to dealers of which the buyers were unaware amounted to bribery, and whether the dealers actually had any duty of care to act on behalf of their customers rather than in their own interests. Now, whilst the ruling wasn't found fully in favour of the people who've taken up the loans, it did leave open the possibility of compensation for buyers who did have a finance deal which had one of these DCAs, these discretionary commission agreements, arrangements, and it would depend on how the interest rate was set and what the person taking out the loan knows about it. Now, it's being speculated that the buyer could receive the difference between the rate they should have been charged, which presumably is the lowest rate that the loan arranger was offering, and the higher rate that they actually paid, together with an interest of 8% on the overpayment. Now, if this goes ahead, the Financial Conduct Authority will contact motorists and motorcyclists directly. And the FCA has actually advised against people taking out arrangements with third-party claims companies because, as they say, those claims companies will actually take a cut of the compensation. Now, the FCA said it would confirm by Monday, the 4th of August, so that's tomorrow, whether or not it will be consulting on this redress scheme. And they also remind us that their aims are to ensure that consumers are fairly compensated and that the motor finance market works well, which kind of begs the question, how is it that schemes like this ever get into operation and reach the point where billions of pounds have been milked from car, van, and bike buyers? I remind you that I think Black Horse had set aside 1.8 billion against potential compensation against this scheme. So, why aren't schemes like that illegal out of the box? I have no idea. Now, sadly, in the Bay of Plenty region of New Zealand, a motorcyclist has died after colliding with a school bus on a rural roads. Emergency services were called to the crash. It was at Ruatoki, which is south of Wakatani. Police said that the motorcyclist died at the scene on Friday afternoon. No other injuries were reported. There are no details on exactly what happened, but when I was riding around New Zealand in 2018, that was the first occasion I was there, I did notice just how many rural roads had warning signs about buses stopping or even bus turning signs. Now, since many of those roads are actually quite narrow, they're also quite twisty, little blind bends. So these locations wouldn't have been easy to spot, but obviously the signs help. And of course, if roads are narrow, it's always possible you encounter a bus coming the other way. Now, here is a road design that you may recall. Where's my slide gone? There, no, that's the wrong one. What's happened to it? Oh, I appear to have lost it. All right, okay. Not sure if I can get it back. It was the California Cross scheme. which, if you recall, sort of painted what was some people described as a sort of flower power view of the road. And no, I seem to have failed to put it into the list of pictures. Let me see if I can just get it up quickly for you. No, obviously I can't. It's not going to play ball. Sorry about that. I seem to have saved the pictures somewhere where they shouldn't be, which is why it's not appeared in the folder with the other graphics. Right. Anyway, never mind. I'll have to make do without. But anyway, yeah, the basics point that I was trying to make here was that the California Cross junction in Finch Hampstead, it was repainted with these sort of rather weird flower markings to replace what had been a standard pair of mini roundabouts. Now, this happened back in the end of 2024. Some people called it distinctive, others called it confusing. And the other day, Malk tipped me off to the fact that this redesign has been shortlisted for 2 categories in the Highways Awards, and also in a placemaking project category of the British Construction and Infrastructure Awards. Wokingham Borough's Council's Executive Member for Transport, Adrian Betteridge, he said it was great to see the project recognised. Local reactions were rather more mixed, and BBC quoted one resident as saying the junction was interesting, and whilst he didn't actually have a problem with the motoring side of it, he did have concerns for pedestrians. He said it wasn't clear whether it was a pedestrian crossing or not, and that was where the real danger was. Other locals said that visitors to the area basically didn't know what to do with it, and that there was confusion over priority. And one respondent said that it means some drivers approach it very cautiously, others just drive straight over it at speed. Now, interestingly, Wokingham Borough Council, they said that whilst their study has suggested that pedestrians are crossing the road in less time, and that drivers are giving way more often, they haven't actually yet completed their road safety audit. That's due to take place in October. Now, a correction on one story that I published the other week. This was about the story from Spain that riders of A category motorcycles would be required to wear airbags compulsory out of town when riding on non-urban roads. Now, as far as I can tell, this story emerged from one report on a website called Euronews, and it seems to have been syndicated onto a number of other sites, and it hit motorcycle forums like UK GSA. So it's possible that the Euro Weekly News, it looks like it was probably the original. Now, having done a bit more digging, and with the help of Mr. Longbeard and Alan PBTD from the Ride to the Limit forum, it seems like whoever wrote that original story got completely the wrong end of the stick. And what they did was they conflated an old proposal for airbags to be worn on out of town roads by all motorcyclists, which apparently made it into a proposal back in 2021, with something that has made it into the statute books, which is a new rule that airbags will have to be used by riders who are taking instruction on Category A, full power motorcycles. So this order was posted by the Ministry of the Interior. It's order INT/210/2025. It was posted on the 27th of February, and it, quote, regulates training for progressive access to Class A driving license. Now, FEMA, they say they've consulted with their Spanish member organization, the Asociación Nacional de Motoristas, which has confirmed there's no such obligation, not in Spain, not in any other EU country either, because that press story did mention France and Italy, which I knew was incorrect. So apologies for my own misleading statement last show. I did say I would check, but of course this still does beg one question: why only Category A? You know, a Category A motorcycle is certainly capable of crashing at the sort of speed limit that they have in Spain, but an A1 or an A2 bike can also reach those sort of high enough speeds for a heavy crash. And you know, the question, other question I have, of course, isn't wouldn't riders under instruction be less likely to crash than riders after, of course? It may be the rationale to get riders used to using airbags, so that they um, have them when they qualify. I don't know that. It's a possibility, but it's a slightly weird story. Right. Okay. Anyway, very quickly, if you wouldn't mind, do the usual thing. Press the buttons down there. Subscribe, like. It all helps people catch the show. And if you can't do it that way, simply tell your buddies about Elevenses. They can catch up on YouTube anytime after the show goes out live. If you want to get all my latest articles, the easiest way to do it is to get my survivalskills.substack.com newsletter. The QR code there will take you straight to it. All the new articles are free, and you'll be able to read them over on my Ko-fi site. Right, okay. So from there, it's on to some bike news. And the disappointing results being posted by Harley-Davidson's electric spin-off Livewire. Now, they've widely been known to be, you know, sort of way below what Livewire were looking for. But how bad the sales figures actually are, it was a bit of a shock to me. Now, Livewire was launched as a separate entity in 2021, and as the company was being spun off from Harley-Davidson, they were hoping to reach sales of 100,000 plus units by 2026. So let's have a look at what they've actually managed. Let me just zoom in on that graph for you, give you the full picture. There it is. You can see the figures from fourth quarter 2021 right up to the second quarter 2025. And you'll see that it hovered sort of somewhere between 100 and 200 for the first four quarters. Then they dropped right off. There was 1 month when they zoomed up. I think that was probably when the S2 Del Mar and the other one, S2 Alpinista, I think it was called, came out. And since then it's dropped back a bit. The sort of 200 were sold just over there. But if you look at the latest figures, I mean, they're really, there's sort of 50 bikes. You know, in fact, it was 55 electric motorcycles that Livewire sold in the second quarter of this year. And at the same time, the company declared more than $18 million of operating losses. Now, ironically, its children's electric bikes have generated 85% of what revenue Livewire has managed to generate. And those sales have grown 25% in the latest quarter, but full-size bikes dropped significantly. Harley's CEO, Jochen Zeitz, he was quoted as saying that EV adoption is, quote, just not happening as originally anticipated. Right, okay, so that's the bad news for Harley-Davidson. And of course, it does fuel the continuing interest with ICE bikes. And the latest new brand name to arrive in the UK is Bender. Now, I've been covering their bikes, which effectively are a range of cruiser style machines on Elevenses, but now 3 motorcycles are confirmed as coming to UK dealers. There is a website now up and running where you can find information about these bikes. So 2 models will be based on Bender's V-twin. The third will be on a 4-cylinder bike. Now let's have a look at one of the V-twins first. There are 2. There is the weirdly named Napoleon Bob, which, surprise, surprise, is a bobber, and that's the bike in this picture. And there is also a Chinchilla, which 500, which is equally odd name. That's a classic style cruiser. with a twin seat. Now, both machines, they feature a 476cc 8-valve liquid-cooled V-twin. It puts out 47 horsepower at 8,800 RPM, 42 newton meters at 6,700 RPM, so it's bang on the A2 license limit. Drive is via a 6-speed gearbox. Tank capacity is the same, 16 litres for both machines. Now, one unique feature is belt drive. I believe it's fitted to the bobber. Sorry, it's definitely fitted to the bobber. I believe, looking at photos, it's also fitted to the cruiser. Now, the chinchilla gets standard inverted forks, but this machine, the Napoleon Bob, if you look at it, you can see there's a sort of shroud over the forks. It's been reported as having girder forks, but I think they're standard upside down forks, just with that plastic piece over them. No word on weight in the press release. Couldn't find it on the website either at a quick glimpse. How much? The chinchilla will set you back a fairly modest £5,199. The Napoleon Bob in the picture will set you back another 300 plus on the road charges, of course. Now, the next machine is a rather different one. And again, you'll either like this or you'll probably hate it. That'll be my guess. This is the LFC 700, and this gets an 85 horsepower, 16 valve, liquid cooled, double overhead cam, 676 inline 4-cylinder engine. And this bike gets some fairly premium components. It gets Brembo brakes with obligatory dual channel ABS, and it gets KYB suspension at both ends. Now, the styling reminds me, at least at a glance, of Yamaha's VMAX machines, but with some unique styling features. That huge swing arm, of course, is one, and the very low seat. It's just 700 millimeters high, 27.5 inches, which is presumably where the 700 in the name comes from. And there's also that rather unusual 4-exit underslung exhaust. I'm not sure, though, about the rather huge 310 millimeter wide rear tyre. I cannot imagine that will make the handling of the machine particularly nimble. I guess that's probably not the rationale of a bike like that. I'm not sure how the engine characteristics will play with the design either. Peak power's at 9,000 RPM, and peak torque via the 6-speed box, that comes out at 60 newton meters at 8,000 RPM. So it's a fairly revvy engine. Now, there's a tank of 17 litres, a colour TFT display, the usual now LED lights, riding modes, they're all on the feature set there. But the bad news is this: to ride away on the LFC 700, you'll get £1 change out of 9,000. And I'll be honest, given the unproven history of the brand, I think that makes them at least £2,000 more too expensive here in the UK. Now, Bender machines are being distributed in the UK by the Lancashire-based MotoGP, and they'll be available at 20 dealers. Each bike does come with a 2-year unlimited mileage warranty. Now, another bike which has reappeared rather than appeared is the GSXR 1000R. Now, Suzuki dropped plenty of hints last week about a new high-performance motorcycle that would be launched just ahead of the Suzuka 8-hour endurance race, which is this weekend. Now, it wasn't a great surprise then to see the relaunched GSXR 1000R, even though the manufacturer had said that they were moving away from sports bikes back in 2023 when they ended their racing involvement. Now, I say relaunch rather than new because this freshly minted Euro 5 compliant machine is actually based firmly on the 2017 model. Suzuki are claiming 192 horsepower from this machine, down from 200 horsepower for the previous incarnation. To make the bike Euro 5 plus compliant, there are significant engine updates. So, said to be bigger throttle bodies, a new crankshaft, new crankcases, new pistons and conrods, and giving a higher compression ratio to go along with that remodeled and rather smaller and neater exhaust system. The electronic suite's been updated. There's a 6-axis IMU offering improved traction control and the company's latest anti-wheelie and torque roll control. The machine also comes with the now obligatory winglets. 3 color options available, including this one, which I think is the special 40th anniversary edition. There is a sort of 40 on the fairing if you look closely. And it does get the obligatory winglets, as I think I just said that. So bikes should be in dealers next year. Right. Okay, now this time of the show, I usually have an in-depth item, and today is no different. I'll just check the oh, it's Christine who's looked in. Hello, Christine. She says, a good ride yesterday, stopping at Tan Hill Inn. That's the highest pub in England. Yes, I remember going there many years ago and playing pool on their pool table and wondering why the balls all ended up at one end of it. It's needed a bit of leveling off. But yeah, it's an interesting place to go. It's fairly bleak up there, isn't it? Nice ride there when you do get there. Right, okay, so back to the in-depth item. Now, what I want to talk about today, this is I know this is going to be a controversial item, but I'll say it anyway. Now, I put something up on the Facebook and Coffee just recently about a new study which had come out with the studying the use of videos to prime riders and articles and drivers rather to each other's presence. Now, the study found some positive results. However, what went on in the study certainly wasn't being entirely accurately reported by the press. For example, one road safety site used this graphic as their header for the story. Let me just zoom in on that so you can read it for yourself. Well, what's wrong with it? Well, quite simply, it doesn't reflect on the study at all. The study didn't set out to answer that question, why do drivers crash into motorcycles? They certainly didn't suggest they might be ignorant, arrogant, or observant. So it had nothing to do with the study, but what it did do was it very effectively primed riders to respond to the graphic and not the story. Now, I discovered that because I actually used this particular graphic on my own take on the study on my Facebook page. And I can honestly say that out of the many dozen responses that people took time to craft and put up on the page, not one mentioned what I was talking about, which was the fact that you cannot mix and match the 1% of traffic, 20% of fatalities numbers, which we so commonly hear about motorcycle crashes, without mentioning the fact that riders are simply more vulnerable when they do crash. It's always used to kind of imply that motorcyclists are falling off all over the place, and that's simply not the case. Anyway, I used the graphic, perhaps foolishly, as I looked at that fact about the original study, about the statistics. But of course, what it did was it primed riders to give me their opinion on why these crashes happened. And whilst a few riders did actually point a finger at bikers, and a few more said it's a two-way thing, and both motorcyclists and drivers have a responsibility to avoid running into each other, most of them simply repeated the usual rationale that drivers don't look properly. So how did those riders who thought drivers didn't look properly, how did they deal with that problem? Well, a significant number had a very simple plan. They were going to treat all drivers as though they were out to kill me. Now, I'm not going to be shy about saying this. I cringe when I hear that phrase. It's a powerful, it's a loaded statement. It's loaded with fear, with frustration, and most importantly, with blame. And the fact is, it adds nothing nothing positive to our collective safety efforts. And instead, what it does is it actually entrenches a really harmful prejudice that suggests that when compared with motorcyclists who are safe and skillful, drivers are unskilled, malicious, or both. Now, near misses are scary. Yeah, they spark fear, they spark anger, and they can be very traumatic. And crashes are even worse. But whilst we're saying that the drivers are out to kill us, what we're capturing is an emotional truth, perhaps, but it's not an objective assessment of what actually goes on. It's a statement of denial. It shuts down any kind of dialogue which might seek to break down barriers. It fosters a defensive attitude generally in the motorcycling community. It becomes a statement of us and them. And it's language that encourages confrontation rather than conciliation and collaboration. Now, worse still, by insisting that drivers are uniformly out to do harm, we cultivate a stereotype that drivers are unskilled, uncaring, and even dangerous by default. And it feeds our confirmation bias, which means we actually reinforce our perceptions. Because what happens is we only notice the drivers who get it wrong. We utterly fail to register the many, many more drivers out there who never put us at risk. We never see the drivers who get it right because they don't fit this narrative that there's some kind of malicious intent. And frankly, it's simply exhausting to ride in this way. If we genuinely believe every driver's out to kill us, it just makes us anxious and stressed with our riding, and that's no fun. And worse, it degrades our own responses. Riders who are stressed are not riders who are going to respond well to a threat when it does occur. Now, none of this is to say that drivers don't make errors. They do, but they are not setting out to murder us. Worst of all, when this conversation becomes solely about blame, we lose sight of our own shared responsibility to avoid what I call a two to tangle collision. All drivers are out to kill me. It distracts us from the solutions that we ourselves can apply because we begin to see these crashes as inevitable consequence of driver behavior, and we see nothing in our own behavior as contributing to these collisions. Yes, drivers make errors, but we make errors too. So remember this: if a driver sets up a crash at a junction, it only happens if we ride into that situation to complete the collision. We simply don't have to do that. Saying drivers are out to kill me, it may capture that moment of frustration, but it does little to advance the cause of road safety. Now, if you don't believe me on this, just try counting what happens as you pass junctions. Count the number of drivers who actually see you and wait safely, and then compare that with the number of incidents that you have where drivers don't do exactly what you want them to do. You will be amazed. Honestly, you will. Just try it. Just go out for a ride, slow down a bit, and see what happens. So let's work together. Let's try and make fewer errors on both sides of the sorry mate, I didn't see you junction collision. We can ride defensively without turning defense into the blame game. So let's make a start by dropping this drivers are out to kill me line altogether. It's not helpful because that's not what they are doing. Right, that is it from me today. I hope that you have enjoyed the show. Apologies once again for the slight glitch in the graphic. Before I go, if you do enjoy these shows, consider supporting me via my Ko-fi page. You can do it via the graphic which is coming up. You can become a supporter, one-off basis. You can become a monthly subscriber. You can commission me, or you can buy my products. There are inexpensive books over there and paperbacks which are a reduced price over the full paperback version, the ebooks, of course. So let me just thank those of you who supported me in the last 7 days. That will be Hallam, Dave, Helen, Tony, who bought a download copy of the Survival Skills book, Brian, Sue, and Anonymous. So thank all of you very much indeed for your support. And you can head over there via the QR code if you're interested. Right, so finally, thanks to everybody who has looked in today. It's very much appreciated. And I'll be back with another roundup of news, views, and better biking tips at 11 a.m. I think on Wednesday. I'm still canvassing for votes on whether or not to switch to a 7 p.m. in the evening format, which does make a bit of a nonsense of the 11s' name, but that's as it is, and whether to switch to Monday and Thursday. If you've got any thoughts on that, let me know, and I will think about bringing that in probably in the autumn. But for now, thank you once again if you have looked in live, and if you are out there enjoying your bike today, make sure you stay shiny side up and watch out for that big storm coming through tomorrow.